moment that Tony Blair sold his soul. That was the moment at which Tony Blair was totally in the clutches of those who seek to control pretty much everything they can lay their hands on. What I'm going to do this evening, in the next hour or so, is touch on a number of different threads, and it may appear that I'm jumping from one thread to another as I go through the evening. But as it comes to a conclusion, hopefully you'll see that all these threads come together. And I'm going to touch on some fairly controversial aspects. I only get nervous when I come to Glastonbury. Everywhere else, I'm giving presentations that, I've generally given once or twice at least before. But Glastonbury, I always push the envelope that little bit further. And tonight is no different. So please bear with me. This is an X-rated evening, I think, but... The New World Order, we can trace it back quite some way, but just look at this century. And Hitler made this observation. George Bush Sr. used the phrase on September the 11th, 1990, 6 weeks after Saddam had bitten the bait offered by April Glaspie when she basically told Saddam that America wouldn't get involved if Iraq invaded Kuwait. And the 11th of September has some interesting connotations through history, not least that on the 11th of September 1973, that was the date at which George Bush Sr. was actively involved in setting up the coup in Chile that took out President Allende and put in Pinochet, with Kissinger making his famous remark after the electorate had elected Allende in Chile. And Kissinger said, no, that we have to do something. This is far too important for the people to decide. So the New World Order, it has a number of connotations, but I'm going to move into the arena of the brotherhoods. And what does this phrase, New World Order, mean? Now, you may see some words come up which actually sort of, how shall I say, cause a reaction in you. Try and suppress that reaction, because I'm going to explain that the use of these words is somewhat different than perhaps it is presented in the media. And I will try and explain why it is that the media try and create an impression about these words so that effectively they become words of non-discussion. The New World Order and the Secret Brotherhoods is another term for the quest for a new Jerusalem. Now, New Jerusalem is a generic term within the Brotherhoods that means a new start. Jerusalem obviously has featured through history as the start of a number of New World Orders. So over the years, there have been a number of cities that have been effectively designated by the Brotherhoods operating within those cities and the leaders of those cities as the New Jerusalem. Not least Paris, Washington, Perth in Australia, and there's a couple of places dotted around the US. But one of the primary places is London. And if my memory serves me correctly, it was 2 or 3 years ago that Adrian Gilbert stood on this stage on a Sunday evening and talked about London and his investigation into London as the New Jerusalem. And this term came about in London basically from around about the 17th century, although we can trace this thread back a little further, with a group of people who believed that England was effectively ceded by one of the lost tribes of Israel, effectively the tribe of Ephraim. And the term they use to identify their New Jerusalem is Zion. Now, Zion, of course, is a hill, the name of a hill in Jerusalem. Now, the media have worked very, very effectively for the last 30 or 40 years to shut down any intellectual discussion that revolves around the word Zion. To the extent, there's two groups in North America, the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, and AIPAC, the America-Israel Public Affairs Committee, that have actually been so successful in shutting down the intellectual debate, they actually managed to get the dictionary definition of the American International Dictionary. That's a bit of a contradiction of terms, I know, but they got the definition changed so that anti-Semitism was defined as criticism of Zionism. This is intellectually dishonest. Zionism is a religio-political organization, an extremist religio-political organization. I mean, it's basically like criticizing the BNP. I mean, you know, we don't have any problem if we get involved in a debate criticizing the BNP. But if we get involved in a debate where we're criticizing the Zionists, we run the risk of being tagged as anti-Semitic. And nothing could be further from the truth. And I want to make it very, very clear right from the outset that nothing I say tonight is anti-Semitic, and everything that I say, I have checked and cross-checked with members of the British Jewish community. Back in February, The Guardian ran an article written by one of the leading members of the British Jewish community. And basically he was saying that they were getting fed up with being told what to think by the political extremists. And on the Guardian website, for 10 or 12 days, ran a whole really heated debate. Everybody pretty much participating in the debate was Jewish. And basically it was the British Jews saying, no, we've had enough. You know, we are not going to put up with the fact that every time we criticize the policies and practices of the Israeli government, we are vilified as being anti-Semitic or a self-hating Jew. So I just want to make that very, very clear that when we mention Zionism and it has any link with Israel, we are talking about a religio-political organization, nothing more, nothing less. The goals of the New World Order. Now, the New World Order is not one organization. There are a number of different organizations, and they make very, very strange bedfellows. And as we go through the evening, I will introduce you to some of them, certainly not all of them by any stretch of the imagination. It's very incestuous. They cross-fertilize with each other. From time to time, they all think they're in the ascendancy. What's going to get very interesting is when they get to a certain place in their agenda, and then they turn on each other. But the New World Order is a generic term, actually, that represents a number of organizations who think, and we certainly would like to believe, that they're calling the shots. But one thing is for sure, these are the goals that they absolutely share. The one world government, the one world economy, the one world religion. And in each case, the one world is theirs. And a population reduced to 1 billion people. So it's 80% reduction. And I believe last year, because last year's Glastonbury Symposium took place just a few weeks after a conference at the University of Houston, where this issue was debated openly and was reported in widely in the American press. Now, I'm going to look a little bit at why it is that they get away with some of the crap they do. And, we seem to, en masse, just acquiesce to their activity. And this is a statement from Hermann Göring. And he said, naturally, the common people don't want war. But after all, it is the leaders of a country who determine the policy. And it is always a simple matter to drag people along, whether it is a democracy or a fascist dictatorship or a parliament or a communist dictatorship. Voice or no voice, the people can always be brought to the bidding of the leaders. This is easy. All you have to do is tell them they are being attacked and denounce the pacifists for lack of patriotism and exposing the country to danger. It works the same in every country. Do I need to remind you, a certain world leader, shortly after 9/11, said, you're either with us or you're with the terrorists. The US has effectively been a dictatorship since 2003. Very few Americans are aware of this. George Bush signed the orders for a state of emergency in 2003, and he hasn't rescinded those powers. He has recently submitted, literally within the last few weeks, he has recently submitted a bill to the Senate which will give the Department of Homeland Security the right to sequester the assets of anybody who criticizes the policy of the government. We are well on the road to the United Soviet States of America.